Hey, and welcome to AI for UX. This is a space where UX researchers and product leaders come to stay current with AI innovations. I'm John Whalen, the founder of Brilliant Experience, and we do psychological-driven strategic insights. And today, I have a return visitor, and I'm delighted to do so. Aaron from Outset is the CEO and co-founder, and he was on the show almost exactly 2 years ago. And when Outset was very different than it is today, and I'm delighted to see your success. So I believe I met Aaron first when we were at a conference in New York City, and I appreciated their sense of humor because their banner at that show said, "Yet another AI company." I love that. And you got lots of comments and they were positive, and I think maybe some attention for being thoughtful like that. So I appreciate your humor and the dry sense too. And oh, just before I forget, all of these videos are not product endorsements. Brilliant pays full price for all of the technology we use, and no one's getting paid. It's just to learn more. So with that, let me say thank you so much for being here. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, that banner was basically just there were so many AI companies popping up, and there still are, that at some point you gotta just kind of look at that and laugh. So that was our banner. I think the marketing team made me change it for the next one.
Fair enough. Um, well, good. Honestly, it has been about 2 years since we've talked together. So there's a ton of changes, and I don't even know if you could remember them all, but if there are some highlights that you wanted to mention about all the things that have changed.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think about this like back then, 2 years ago, when we were
Mm,
kind of just getting started. It was about this novel thing that was possible, right? It was about the
yeah.
idea that could AI lead a good enough conversation with a human to elicit useful, interesting, topical insights from them. And I think back then, and it was true, right? Like it clearly became true. We saw that, and so we started building on that. And I think that like, as startups, they usually start with some sort of nugget, some like core thing that is now, has emerged as this possible thing. And then to actually go from a good demo and a great, initial insight and innovation to an actual platform is in many ways the hard part, right? Like once you have the spark, you need to actually build the thing. And I think that what we've seen is just a huge amount of expansion in the breadth of what the platform is possible, the depth of how powerful the agents are, and then the kind of how to actually deploy it in real life at large scale with big enterprise. So it's kind of like the various directions we've gone, everything from kind of all the different kinds of methodologies and question types we support to how advanced our analytics are, completely different level to how we the modalities of the interview, right, having things like screen share and video and different kinds of languages and like all of these things have emerged, and then all the way to just like that we have a powder toolkit, we call it, which is people who do research is powder, which is a toolkit of how you deploy this across non-researchers throughout the business. So there's just many different dimensions that have grown here, and maybe the most powerful of which we'll talk about today, which is visual intelligence, which is how the AI moderator can actually watch things and react. And so all of these are really interesting ways that we've kind of taken this initial nugget and brought it to a really useful platform deployed at the world's biggest enterprises.
Very cool. And honestly, I guess I've never really told you that really Outset kind of changed the trajectory of my course as well.
Mm.
I was watching a Board of Innovation conference, and they said, yeah, we interviewed 300 people over 6 languages over a weekend, and I was like, what? And so anyway, I was like, how did they do that? And I found out about this place called Outset, and I was like, well, if this is true, it's really going to change what we do. And so we've transformed what we do, and that's actually the story I now teach AI for customer research. And the first story I tell is about you and Board of Innovation and how I saw that and was like, my jaw was on the floor,
Wow.
dangling. And if it was any, I said, is it any good? And then we tested it. And now we're really embracing a lot of these tools as thoughtfully as we can.
That's
And
great. That's great.
yeah.
And I was just gonna say, like, I think when we started, in many ways, the industry was not quite yet ready in a way, right? There's kind of still trepidation. There was kind of still, even, people, not everybody was as hyper focused on AI as I was. And so you just, I think, the whole industry has moved in this direction, which is amazing. But I'd like to think we kind of pulled it forward a few months, right? At least, and really like started, being the voice of this and kind of coined the term. Yeah, I moderated research and really got to help bring this industry to where it is today.
Very cool. And actually, I guess there may be people who don't fully understand what Outset, and so just like really broadly, are there capabilities that you're like all these CX teams and researchers should know about the most that are? I know we're going to show some stuff in just a sec, but
Yeah, well, I think that at its core, AI moderated research, as I mentioned at the beginning, is like it's a ability for AI to converse with real people, pull that data out of them in useful ways, and then synthesize it and deliver it to you. Right? That's like the most kind of simplest term. Um, but things that I think we're going to talk about today is just how powerful the agents are in both in how you build out this how you build out these studies, how you actually run these interviews, which is it introduces visual intelligence, which is the big new launch that from us, and then how you synthesize this in ways that are immediately useful. And so I'll touch on all of those today. I mean, like that's kind of those are the areas I'm excited about.
cool. Thank you. And honestly, I wanted to reserve plenty of time for us to just do show it rather than just talk about it. So I can kind of let you go. So let me just see if I can get all
Sure.
my technology rolling, and in theory, we'll share a screen in just a sec. Um, okay, I'm seeing Brilliant Experience demo. Do you want to sort of frame where we are and what we're going to see today?
Exactly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll just create a new study in real time, right? So kind of this is the we're in a where you're in your Outset account, you log in, you create a new project, you call it Brilliant Experience Demo. That's our project today. And so we need to create a study. And within this project, we can actually create multiple, and we'll merge all the data, which is a really useful mechanism. Whether you're different recruitment sources, different languages, different phases, whatever it is. But today we're just going to create one study. And what I want to do, and this is all brand new. So we actually have just shipped a massive redesign, revamp, and toolkit for how you create studies. So I'm going to hit on a couple of things. So when you're getting started, right, you can actually start just describing what you want in the research, and that will kick off a whole conversation with AI. But you can also start from scratch. You know what you want, upload a PDF that you've already written or a Word doc, right? And we'll just build it for you. You can actually save templates. This is hugely useful when you're kind of managing across large teams and large Powder deployments. And again, Powder is that the non-researchers, right? And even we've even recently added quick starts, right? So if you say, hey, I want to do more product strategy stuff, I have quick starts that will give me a starting point. So for here, I'm gonna just go ahead and do the most dangerous thing in a demo, and I'm gonna ask you for a topic for me to create a study around.
All right. Well, that's exciting. So I have a client that wants to know how to better serve science enthusiasts who need to learn about science. So they weren't sure like what platform to use and everything. So yeah, I want to learn about how science
Um,
enthusiasts want to what they want to learn and what platforms they want it served on.
all right, what platforms? Is this inspired by a real project, or is
Yeah.
this more of yourself
Hmm.
as the science enthusiast?
Yeah. No. 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 This is a client. They'll be interested.
Brilliant. Okay. So what you're seeing here, again, this is the kind of brand new experience. So this is recently deployed. You're seeing on the right is actually the draft that we're going to build in real time with AI, and the agents on the left, right? So what is like the really cool thing here, whether you're a researcher trying to refine your ideas or you're a non-researcher and you're trying to like, hey, you don't really know best practices, like we'll do that for you. And so you can just collaborate with AI here. And what's also cool is that you can see here was my prompt. It responds to me and then starts giving me questions because what it's doing is it's like it's iterating with me. It's asking me questions to build out something really useful. So let's go ahead. What type of science content are we focused on? Let's just say general science content across all types. I'll make a couple
Hmm.
decisions for you. Hopefully they're reasonable.
That's great.
Um, you can see it says cross-checking best practices. We have a whole library of best practices that it's as a skill to this AI to kind of pull from. Um, let's go general adults, and then the decision it will, let's see, launching new content, let's say.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry, launching or improving a science content platform. All right, so now you can see in real time on the right, it's building out the entire study, right? It's setting up the screener. And what's happening is we're calling it agent swarm. So basically, you have one agent that's building out the plan, and then the other agents are building out all of the different parts. So you can see it just built this screener question, and then it's going down and starting to add all of the kind of questions in real time. Isn't that cool? It's like just building this entire thing in real time.
It probably doesn't matter how many, like, I don't know, I don't want to know your secrets, but also just um, how did you decide to scale it like that? Or are there, maybe I can ask this,
Yeah,
what
well,
different expertise
no,
is built into it?
no, I think that's a great question. So there's a couple, like, it is really helpful to have one agent build a plan first,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think if you immediately parallelize, then you kind of don't have a coherent narrative, right? So you need that plan, but once you have the plan, the actual articulation of the questions, you can parallelize, right? And that's all about speed, right? We don't want this to be single threaded and go one question, next question, next question. And so as a result, we then parallelize, right? And each agent has the ability to access those best practices, right? So we built that library where we can pull from. So for example, we shouldn't be asking double-barreled questions, right? Your most classic kind of best practices. And then, by the way, look, check this out. So now AI is asking us for more. So you can see it had a change summary of what happened, and then we could continue going through, kind of do more here, and it's just ready to help you. But I'm going to go ahead and skip. We're gonna look a little bit more at the study itself. So as we go through, you've got kind of what type is it, a usability test or a standard interview? What's the modality? Your moderator styles, right? You can actually do custom moderators, which is a whole thing where AI interviews you to understand your aesthetic and what you care about and how you would like to moderate. You can even use different kinds of voices to the extent you want them. You can listen to all of these. You then have all of the metadata like context for AI. You have your screeners, and you can even see like the disqualification logic is all here, kind of within this. If you want, there's a ton of other settings, as I'm sure you know, John. Like the complexity of a good screener, it's very high.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can even preview things, right? So you can kind of see this popping up on the right side. It's currently in the kind of the mobile format. You can also do desktop, of course, and then you can even reveal logic right here. So you can even see kind of the what the logic actually is within your preview. And so we added all of this to just make this process just incredibly simple and incredibly kind of smooth and intuitive. Again, both for a researcher and even a non-researcher. And as you look at all the kinds of content you can add, and we'll go down, show more of the study below, but we've also added a ton of options here. So over the last, 2 years ago, we had nothing but conversation. We didn't call it that, but it was a conversational question. It was just AI talk to this person. But now, we recognize that the complexity of actual research is often in like different ways of framing questions, different kind of forced choice options, where like AI should always be digging deeper. But sometimes you really do want someone to force them to put a 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, right? Or you want them to do a task where we articulate, go do this thing, right, in this digital area. Or a matrix questions where you want them to answer, 6 questions on a single screen. We also, added concept sections where we're doing sequential monadic testing, where you can have 10 concepts and randomly assign 2 of them to each person, right? And then we have all, concept comparison table from that. We even recently added participant uploads, where you can have a section where someone can upload an image or even a video to show something in the real world, and AI can understand it. But we'll get to visual intelligence in a moment. I wanted to just show the kind of breadth of what's possible here. And as we go through every one of these, we have all of the settings on the question kind of hidden a little bit into the settings, so it's easy and simple to see and absorb. You can, of course, pick how much probing you want. We still have this abyss mode if you want to spend a while on a single question. Yeah, and you can kind of go through all of that, and this is all built for you. And then, of course, you can pop that agent open and say, "Hey, I'd like to, change a couple of things," and go from there. But this is the new study creation experience. Now, from here, yeah, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, just real quick. This is great, and thank you. First of all, appreciate your energy and all your accomplishments. So us researchers would be like, "Oh, this all happened for me. How do I know it's really good?" Like, you clearly had the sort of best practices. I guess it's just that it like in comparison, and I know we can't do it all because there are the people who do research. So how do I feel comfortable that they're doing something that's like really appropriate as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually should have started off with that. So if you think about kind of like why are we working with AI to build this stuff? And I think like for a researcher, um, building out an entire discussion guide is actually, can be cumbersome, right? Like as with any AI producing content, we want to be there to inspire. What are we focused on? We want to be there as an editor to ensure quality, but ultimately execution. We can get a lot of leverage, a lot of kind of time saved, and also just do move quicker with AI. So that's why AI on the left side is about working with you. So it's going to build out this draft. You can talk to AI. Hey, I actually think we should focus more on this than that, and it'll redo the whole thing. You can get in there and edit anything you want. We still have every bit of power tools that you can imagine, in these. So you have all of this, right? From a non-researcher perspective, right, they maybe don't have all of those best practices already ingrained, which is why we rely so heavily on the agent to have those best practices. But what's really cool is that the research team can actually set guardrails for the non-researchers. And that takes a couple different forms. You can build in context, you can build templates, you can even do approval flows where if a non-researcher builds a study and hits publish, it'll actually go to the appropriate researchers for approval. You can build financial approvals, right? So if you want your ops team to make sure to give it a thumbs up before it goes out. So there's all of these kind of ways that we build this, like it's like a toolkit around how to ensure high quality while you're also being able to enable lots of folks.
Yeah, really interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
Shoot, what was I going to say? I guess I was thinking about. Well, actually, I am pretty curious about the more usability side of the world too. When you're ready, but
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I'm going to show you what the recruit step would look like, and then let's get into a study that's already run, so we can
great.
talk about some of the key features. I'll just maybe wrap on this page.
Sure.
As you pointed out, there's also usability, right? And reality is AI moderated is just about having AI present and being able to dig deep and observe and understand what's happening in real time. But that is, there's no reason we should do unmoderated at this point, right? AI moderated is everything unmoderated has been plus. And I think that plus is extremely powerful. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing is actually folks kind of moving to more AI moderated kind of mix with usability as one of the key use cases. And what we'll talk about is kind of what that ultimately looks like with the data. So if I built this study, so we want to dig into the science content, I'd then go to recruit. And what you can see is the way that we recruit, and I think when we started maybe 2 years ago, is just self-serve, right? Or actually, no, sorry, it's just your own audience. All you had was a link, right? We then, of course, have added self-serve, where we have several partners, like user interviews, like Prolific, like others, that you can just dig into yourself. You just go in, find the audience you want, hit publish, and we'll just pull people in through our partners. Or concierge recruitment. And this is something that's been a bigger and bigger part of the work that's done at Outset, because like often the hardest research is ones where the audiences are hard to find. And we now partner, this is just a small sample of our partner network on the right-hand side, with folks that can get us all sorts of, everybody from Newton X with great at B2B to, folks like GLG for expert networks, Sago for kind of traditional qualitative audiences, and we can bring all of that to you. And then, of course, you can always have AI simulate as well. So you can test your interview with AI participants. Okay. So maybe now I'll without hitting publish here, because let's not publish this one quite yet. You may want to spend a bit more time with it, John.
Fair.
Here, let's go into an actual study that's been run so you can see what comes out. So this is a study we ran about the experience of using Google Flights to book travel, right? So I'm going to context switch us here to a study that's already been run. And here, if you can see kind of we already did the create, we did the recruit, and now we land on results. And you can see this is just a very raw look at everything that's coming through, right? So every row is a participant. You can see screen out rates and dig into that breakdown. You can even see quality scoring. This is a special thing we do to basically show you kind of how high or medium or even low quality participants are in their responses. We even have we have automations around quality, where if we want to kick people out who are lower quality or not really giving thoughtful answers, you can. But that's kind of the raw what comes in. We even actually have fraud detection which is quite powerful, where it'll actually explain kind of where that fraud detection comes from. It's really cool, right? It's looking at various different indicators about kind of whether somebody's misrepresenting themselves, whether somebody's not using a camera, all that kind of thing. Cool. But let's get into the more juicy stuff. So this was a usability test, right? So as people went through, and here's all of our interviews, as people went through, they are sharing their screen and going through tasks on Google Flights. And I'm actually going to dig just into one person. Let's go here. Now, once you get all the data back, of course, you have your video, you have your transcript on the right, your video, all of your kind of metadata and all the chapters, the kind of the different parts of it. You have your metadata here of like your screener answers, but I actually want to talk about visual intelligence. So visual intelligence is our capability to give the AI moderator eyes, not just ears, right? So if you think about like traditionally AI can listen to what someone says and respond, but now it can actually watch. And watching looks like a few different things. It looks like emotional intelligence, where it's watching someone's facial expressions. It looks like physical intelligence, where it's seeing those uploaded images or videos of the real world and understanding what's in it. And the third is digital intelligence, where it's actually watching what you're doing on your screen and reacting. So I actually want to show you a couple of these bits. So, all right, you can see here all of these little callouts at the bottom. These are all part of visual intelligence. These are either emotions like anger. These are or digital observations like effortless flight search, right? Or maybe more friction, like navigated too far forward in the calendar. So these are kind of these bits that are truly based on actual interpretation of the video. But let's jump into one example. I actually think, okay, so here the moderator, if you follow my mouse on the right-hand side, you can see there's a task that says now select your flights that you'd actually consider booking. The person goes through it and narrates their way, which is great. By the way, if somebody's not narrating, it's really nice for AI to jump in and say, hey, you're not narrating. Can you please share more? I know that there's probably a shared pain point doing unmoderated. You could actually see that this, we had a number of. So you can see his face here is definitely not reflecting a kind of happiness on that one. So we're picking up a little bit of kind of frustration and anger. But what's also cool, after this, AI probes in real time and says, I noticed you switched the sorting from duration back to top flights. What were you looking for when sorting by duration? And why did you decide to switch back? What's so cool about that is he did not say that he did that. Right? So AI is actually watching a behavior and then probing deeper to understand why. Like this is this thing that was only ever possible with a human in the room. And now here he gives it a really solid answer to why that was.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting, right? Go ahead.
I did want to say, like, yeah, we either wound up watching hours and hours and hours of video, and then you're like, okay, well, how am I expanding what I'm doing by doing it by hand? And so having a combination at least of having this give us a first shot at it, or really good work too. It makes it way easier. So I have been asking for, when are we going to get eyes? So thank you for listening to all of us, Aaron.
Exactly.
And creating
exactly. And of course, and we've been wanting this for a long time. And the truth is that it's actually very hard. Like the models are only recently ready to do this, and it took quite a complex architecture to make this work so well. And so I think it is something I've been pushing on and wanting for a long time. Because if you can have the moderator probe in real time and then analyze it, which I'll show you in a moment, right? You've really unlocked so much of what is in particularly usability research, where you're really watching how somebody interacts with something. You can really unlock quite a bit there. And if you think about this probe, if you were to do this with a traditional unmoderated tool, you never would have gotten everything in this answer, right? Like you wouldn't. They would tell you what they did and you'd move on. And this is this power of both AI moderator to listen and that visual intelligence to see. So, all right, let me move on.
Yeah, just real quick.
Go ahead.
So, Aaron, I'm anticipating that this would work both for, in this case, the live website, but if I had some sort of prototype, I could possibly do that as well.
Absolutely. So our usability supports mobile, desktop, prototype, website, mobile app. All of these things are part of our suite.
And I was anticipating that your emotions are sort of like generally valence, like positive to negative, or is it more sophisticated?
Yeah, we have a bit more than that. It uses Ekman scale, and so as we get into the emotional bit in our analysis, you'll kind of see. So you can see here now I've kind of moved to the aggregate view, right? I'm in our insights page, which is kind of our automated report, right, at the end of your study. And here's the emotional. So for every question or every concept or every kind of bit that you went through, you can see the breakdown of the kind of emotions across happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, surprise, fear, contempt, and neutral. And so you can jump right from there into the explanation, kind of what's actually going on. Yeah. So to maybe take a quick step back, once you finish this study, you got a couple ways to dig into the data, right? Number one is you have top line insights, which is just kind of like a summary of what you've learned here. So for example, it's like the one pager, right, that you often will deliver to stakeholders right after the study's done, maybe before you kind of found all the narrative that you want. You can see it reflects the methodology, your key findings against your research objectives, as well as kind of what recommendations we have for you, right? And you can dive deeper on anything you want, and it opens a chat with your data, right? So you can kind of dig in and ask for graphs and ask for key quotes and things like that. And then you go over to the Insights tab, and that's where you have a lot more depth in your analysis. I just showed you that emotional intelligence, but let's go on down to kind of keep highlighting some of what's cool about the visual stuff. So here, this is that task that we showed before. Select your flights you actually consider booking, stop when you can see both, right? So here on the right-hand side, before we even open this up, you have self-reported completion. Those are people that we ask a little button of like, did you complete yes or no? That's how many said yes. 78% is what AI observed completion. So that's a difference of 19% between them. And we call that, as a common term, the say-do gap, right? Somebody says they did it, but they did not. So let's open that up. So you can see we aggregate key observations. So for example, confusion over sequential flight selection flow, right? Or reliance on browser navigation causing state issues because people are hitting the back button on the browser. We of course say how many people did this come up for? 8 people, 17 people, etc. And then we break down the say-do gap. So we have everybody that had that said they completed but didn't. But then you have AI's explanation as to why, and you can, of course, watch the footage. And then we even pick out outliers. What are some experiences that were really outside of the mean, right? That were really interesting for some reason. And this is and we have the explanation. This is like a lot of what's powerful in qualitative research is outliers, right? It's the folks that are demonstrating something unique that might represent a huge opportunity or a huge point of friction or a huge kind of strategic priority. And so we try to pick those out for you.
And just, I guess I've always found it hard to articulate to an LLM what surprise is or unexpected. And how are you trying to generally approach that idea?
Yeah, surprise is kind of an interesting thing because what is I would look at it as almost like what is counterintuitive, and therefore we have to define what is intuitive, right?
Right.
I think that there's some things that are intuitive in a generic sense where we all you would expect if somebody's asked to select a flight, then and they plug in a one location, another location, that would be the intuitive experience, right? So counterintuitive would be somebody who just can't figure out how to pick a flight. That would be something that's not counter to what you would expect, right? And so there's some things that are generic. A lot of things that are outliers or surprises have to do with your context in the business, right? So what is something that about this category, the space, your business, your users, that maybe is not generically known, but but you do know is really common. So that's surprising to you, right? And the way we try to solve that is to let you put in a lot of context here, right? About what matters to you, what are the research objectives, what's the context of the business. And so we're not going to be some master LLM that knows everything about everything. The idea is that we are embedding ourselves into your business, into the enterprises, so that we can understand those things. And so that's, I think, a lot of it is a combination of what's the best we can get out of kind of AI itself, and then how do we integrate and embed into what you all know as an organization. That's how I approach it.
Really interesting. And we found when we gave a lot of context to the LLMs, it did way better with that kind of thing. The last question that might be actually relatively mundane in comparison to what you were showing was when people have really specialized terms or genre, how are we, best to have it sort of recognize that? So a joke, like an example I
Yeah.
have. So when I was talking about scientists, we had a group that was doing catalysis in chemistry, and someone was like talking about like cat atlases in the transcript, and so we just wanted to avoid that and have it know that was catalysis. So
Yeah, well, we have a couple things, and this is like deep in setting, so for the sake of time, I won't share it all. But
right.
but um, there's context for AI. So basically, context, the way, like the more technical, is like context injection. How do you like bring some outside context and give it to AI doing the things it's doing? And so we have that at a study level. We have that at a global level, actually. So across your organization, you can set up context. So if you are you know, a chemistry lab, like you're always going to be doing that, right? So you want that kind of persistent context. And then you could also customize a moderator. And then that moderator can have its own context. And then you can kind of like, deploy those custom moderators for any study you want across the organization. So you could have, your science moderator. And so these are ways that like we try to support the injection of context, the kind of addition of context, along with like, again, trying to really understand your business.
Do you have best practices? You talked about the moderators there for a sec. Do you have best practices for like logically? I could have a Gen Z interview a Gen Z, and someone like my age interview me. I didn't know if that was actually, we don't historically didn't have that opportunity. We just had the moderator or a couple,
Yeah.
and I didn't know if there was even an established practice there yet.
I think we are all learning it here. I don't think there's a single practice. In fact, there's been some studies run about voices too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kind of what voices are best at eliciting the kinds
Mm.
of depth that we want. But even that research was not definitive in what the answer was, right? A lot of people go British for whatever reason, and I think it probably, to your point, depends on the audience, depends on the topic. So yeah, we don't have an established kind of direction. I think custom moderators is often used to kind of mirror your style,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so to kind of like amplify your kind of ability to gather data. But then of course to share them across your company, right? So
Yeah.
if I work at your company, I can like use John's moderator because it's really powerful.
Oh boy.
But the other thing I was going to say is we also recently added this plus button of uploading files.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like another kind of way to inject context. You can just give
Mm.
it files, right, that it stores and then uses as that context and part of that context library. So, and a lot of the MCP work that we've been doing is also to pull in context, from other agents, and then also kind of make our agent more accessible. So, anyways, maybe for next time we can
Yeah.
talk more about MCPs.
Well,
But
and just a last question about that sort of emotional work. So thus far, as you've started to have, I'm sure, like early studies coming in with the emotional measurement, has there been anything like, I guess, what should, or maybe I should think about it another way, for our listeners and viewers, what should they be thinking about as, oh, this kind of study might be especially suitable for one that's got the emotional intelligence, or I might have to think about, I can gain
yeah,
this
so
that I wouldn't have otherwise.
yeah, it's a great question. I think what we found is there's kind of like, I'd say two areas I hear it most. I think number one is actually more of like on the market research side of things, when you are testing things like marketing creative or kind of brand work, something that you are testing, something you're sharing, right? Like, and then all the way down to like concept, early concept, right? So kind of in the market research sphere, when you're trying to
Mm.
talk to or hear from a non-customer, non-user, kind of a person out there, a lot of your job as a marketer is to evoke certain emotions, right? That's what you want to do. You want to evoke trust, or you want to evoke innovative or innovation or whatever it is. And so to measure what that kind of emotions you're evoking with various stimuli makes a ton of sense, right? So that's kind of area one. I'd say area two is actually in deeper user research where you're doing usability. Think long form tasks, right? You're going through a long flow. You're trying to, I don't know, book an Airbnb or do a Google flight, something that actually takes many, many steps. And it's been very hard to map the emotional journey of a long kind of digital flow. And so I think that's the other place is along those kind of tasks and those moments throughout the journey, being able to pinpoint this one question, this one like task kind of right in the middle is actually creating a lot of frustration. That is something very hard to gather and aggregate, right? And so that's something that's a big unlock.
Well, I'm definitely going to be trigger something during the like FAFSA stuff. So when you apply for loans with your kids, it's like incredibly hard. But anyway, well, very cool. Thank you. You know, the other thing. Sorry, are there other things you wanted to show? I didn't want to cut you off.
No. I think we hit all the big ones, and yeah, I think we're most proud of kind of this recent visual intelligence update, as well as kind of how much more agentic we've built the kind of study builder creation iteration flow to be. Is probably the two big things.
No, it's yeah. I didn't recognize it, so I'm with you, and I'm a user of your product. I guess the other thing I saw, you went through relatively quickly because you know it well, but it was impressive to see like, so there's if I'm right, there's a one pager, and then there's the sort of core research questions summary, and then you've got your emotional things, and then lastly, I guess the other was, again, you sort of just brushed against it, but oh yeah, we can give you a set of quotes. Like, I just want to say, in 2024, when I had to get quotes out of 90 hours of interviews, that was a big deal. So I just thank you for that as well.
I I I I appreciate that. I started my career doing exactly that. So I was at an innovation consulting firm. We were doing tons of ethnographic research, and I was the bottom of the totem pole in the team. And all I did was read transcripts and find quotes, and it was the most laborious thing in the world. So I like that should be easy. That's the baseline, but that should be easy today. And I think that's a huge win for folks like you and I.
It's hard to try to describe what makes a meaningful quote. Like I think that's a real art.
Yeah.
You've worked on. But anyway, I'll let it go. I guess one of the things I wanted to say is that, okay, we have all these new superpowers, even in just your tool, let alone anything else. So we've got these researchers who are sort of like, what should nervous, overwhelmed, etc. And then teams that are trying to transition to this new world. What kind of things I don't know if there are ways you sort of recommend people do to future-proof themselves, or kind of, I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about that even for your own company, but kind of what advice do you have for us researchers?
Yeah, so I think I think that like if I were to give advice to larger teams, right, not individuals, but
Yeah.
teams, I would say is like try to first principles the way you should work, right? So I think it's tempting to tack on and tack on and tack on, right? So to kind of like take the way you work and optimize this or optimize that. And I think I think one thing we see works really well as customers start adopting is they really take a step back and they try to say like, okay, what is my job here, right? Like I am trying to understand these things, inform the business in these ways, create kind of operational infrastructure for others across the business. As you get down to the core bit that is your role, then you can start layering on what kind of tools you need to do that, right? And one of them is probably Claude or ChatGPT, right? And then the others are kind of what's the what else do we need help with, and how does this work with our team? And I think like as we've invested a lot in these powder tools, so these kind of tools to help researchers and non-researchers alike collaborate, I think we've learned at a deeper and deeper level that there's a lot of complexity to the way a business wants to run research. So I would just say like first principles your work, and I think we hopefully get to have some wisdom from all the companies we've seen and can help, and that's ultimately a really good kind of place to start if you're like a leader, an operational team, etc. If you're an individual, it's like the most generic advice in the world, but it's like go do stuff, right? So be as native as you can, particularly as you're like if you're looking for a new job or new opportunity. I think a lot of what folks are looking at out there are kind of real native AI builders. And what I'd say maybe the last thing here is that I think people ask me a lot of like, what is the future of the researcher? Like kind of what's the future of the work we do? And I've been kind of working on this idea that you basically like, you kind of like, today researchers do every part of research, but that like where the strengths are in the future is kind of on two sides. One side is being the expert and advisor, right? The more you enable people to gather some of their own data using guardrails and tools and workflows, the more they look to you to understand, how do I interpret it? What kind of methodology am I using? I need your help. You become the expert that is lifting up the rest of the organization. And by the way, that lifts up research. And I've seen this happen, right? There's a huge opportunity for research to be the experts in the room. On the other side of things, researchers are operations. right? They are unlocking customer insights across the company, and they can be operational plumbing. And so I think of like there's kind of two archetypes. There's the ops person, the AI builder type that wants to like figure out the pipelines between Claude and Outset and all these other
Yeah.
tools and like how this fits in the company, and that's super, super powerful. And the other side is like the experts, the methodologists, the advisors, and like the strategists. And I think that's like this is a lot of where we see things going, and it's actually super exciting for research.
Cool. No, it's a very thoughtful answer. Thank you. Um, and I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you was about because you that's an amazing launch of things. I'm sure in 2024 you couldn't have turned around this fast, and so it's impressive. So teams themselves, I guess I'm almost thinking about the product owners and the people making the decisions here. So on one hand, I can just ship a whole bunch of stuff and see what works, and the other is we can actually do some of this testing. And so I
Yeah.
guess you touched on too, there's so many questions that we can now address that formerly we were unable to address. And so so there's that new opportunity. So I guess I just wondered what you're thinking about for how people should think about using all these tools, given I could use this sort of ad infinitum, or I could never use them and just launch stuff. And I'm sure you're not as keen on that idea, but where the balances
No,
should
no,
be
no.
drawn.
Yes. No, I think as you remove some of the software engineering bottlenecks, which is just to say we're all shipping code faster, right? We know
Mm-hmm.
that. The the thing that is scarce, right, is more scarce, is actually understanding what a person wants to see. And like if we've all been around research before, we know that like it's easy for teams to just ship and be just pointed in the wrong direction,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like product analytics is only going to help you optimize between A and B, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to help you rethink the whole premise. And so I think the insights are the scarce thing, right? And now because of what Outset's been able to do is like we've dropped the economic, kind of the cost of those
Mm-hmm.
insights, so it is less scarce. And so I think like we both need to speed up insight collection, right? And so that like think about, how to in this really, really quick cycle, shipping products, how do we like inject a very rapid kind of sense check, gut check with users or a quick cycle kind of test into a really, really fast flow? Or how do we just gather more where it never existed before, right? How do we gather data that like we honestly did not have a way to gather, right? Whether it's multilingual, multiple markets, multiple time zones, a quantity that was never possible, right? Like, so there's so much that we can now unlock that we're like very much in early innings. And one of my favorite things to observe is like new use cases, net new use cases, like not an existing methodology that we slapped AI on, like something that couldn't have existed before. So anyways, it's
Yeah.
very exciting. I think we're like at such a cool moment in the space.
Well, I can't ask for more at this very minute from you, but I guess I am interested in kind of where you see this whole industry going, or how you see Outset continuing to evolve. Like, I used to have a question that was like 2 years, and you might as well be 100 years. But I don't know. Are there other things you're seeing in the horizons, or other things that people are asking for that you're interested? I don't know what
Um,
how you might respond.
we,
Yeah.
we we have we have an internal joke that like it's like you've shown something completely magical and it takes about 1 minute for somebody to ask for something else, right? Like
Yes, exactly.
we're so good at adapting to new things that
Yeah,
we actually like
it's remarkable.
immediately want more. And so it is a gift. I mean, our customers are always demanding or asking for what else could we do and what if we could do this. And so I think there's a lot we're focused on. I mean, I think everything from kind of how do we become a more continuous kind of insight
Mm.
platform. We already have. I'll share more about that in the near future, but already have some really cool products around how we do that. Diary studies are going to come out soon, for example. So again, repackaging how we kind of bring this into our methodologies. And then all the way to kind of how do we fit this deeply in our tool stack that we have with other AI tools. There's just like, and as you go, I mean that's we're talking about 3 months there, right? Like as you
Hmm.
go out 2 years, I think there's a whole kind of range of what's possible as you have a completely, always on and deeply autonomous and deeply insight and customer centric engine that unlocks. And I think we'll save that for our next chat, John,
Perfect.
as we get into it. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
thank you so much. If so, anyway, just people like rewind and see just how much Aaron offered. There's a huge list. I could barely keep my head. And so hats off to you. Get some sleep, your team too. If people want to try Outset, how do they get started?
Yes, well, reach out to us. So outset.ai, it's our URL's in the name. That's helpful. Come reach out, book a demo, talk to our team, DM me on LinkedIn. I would love to work with and share what we've built kind of in a more personalized way with whoever's interested. So yeah, we're super excited for this next chapter. Thank you for having me back after 2 years.
I know. Thank you for being here. So, well, great. Let me just sign us off. But I really appreciate your time, Aaron, and thoughtfulness, and benefits to the community for what you're providing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you. And it's been actually just holding on to all the things that Aaron just mentioned. But thank you for being a part of this, and actually a part of our my AI for Customer Research class on Maven as well. And that's all for today. Really enjoy it. Please comment and let us know what you want to learn about next. And so happy to have you continuing to have brilliant insights with AI. So thank you, everyone.